Hello, how's it going today?
What's going on, Caleb?
My name is it's really going good. My name is Caleb Menifee. I'm with Beyond the Ball. Welcome to the Millionaires Club. Every day we will meet executives from companies like Nike, Power Hands, and PlayStation. Because whether you make it to the pros or not, you can still be a millionaire, and they're gonna show you how. Today's guests are Ricky McCoy, product owner with PlayStation. There he is right there. And Jess Bombachi, UX designer with PitchBook. And there he is right there. We are excited to learn about the PitchBook and PlayStation story. So, Mr. Bombachi, can you start us off with your presentation?
Yeah, let me present here. You see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So yeah, today, Ricky and I, we're going to talk a little bit about design and product, and we're excited to do that. And, design and product are both kind of two different options in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I are going to talk a bit about each about those items. And so I thought I'd kind of start with kind of a little bit of a, basketball analogy, because we're kind of talking, that's where y'all are coming from right now. So I'm going to show you kind of a shot map here. This is some of LeBron's shots, and these are the percentages that he makes them. So as you can see, in the 70% range inside there, he's super successful. And on the outside, he, has lower percentage shots. And so the analogy that I've kind of come up with is that, just like you have a lot of options in basketball from where to shoot, in life, you have a lot of careers you can choose from. And that's kind of the cool thing. And so your goal is to kind of find your high percentage shot in life. So just like on the court, you're trying to find your best shot, your go-to shot that's going to work well for you. You want to try to find that off the court as well. And so just as kind of like an analogy here, if you think of each of these shots, right, as different careers you could take in life, I just threw some random ones on here. The point here is just to kind of illustrate that as you go on, as you get older, through, middle and high school, etc., you can start to look at like which kinds of careers you like, both for design or product like Ricky, and then, like I said, there's lots of other stuff as well. And so today, though, we're just going to focus on the design part. But, design is really about basically people, and those people have a need. And so like, for example, right now, if you're playing basketball, your need is basketball shoes. And so you don't want golf shoes, you don't want hiking boots or running shoes, right? You have very specific needs because you're trying to move in certain ways on the court. And so the fun part about design is that it wasn't all, it isn't always like really high tech. It can be really simple. So for example, if we go back in time a bit, right, before people were even playing basketball, we have the Crudes. I don't know if y'all have seen those cartoons, but for example, they had a need in the beginning, and the beginning was we just need something to protect our feet because we're running around all over the place. And so, like, here's an example of an early design. So this is actually a shoe. This was like one of the first shoe ever made. And I mean, can you imagine playing basketball in a shoe? Probably not super comfortable. But the cool thing about design and product, like you'll hear from Ricky in a bit, is that it's iterative, which means it goes through phases. So it starts out with something really basic, and then it gets newer. And so like, here's like kind of some examples of how shoes improved over time, right? They started stitching it by hand a little bit, then it got a little bit better. And then people started getting creative with shoes. You know, this is kind of a long time ago, and started adding wood and different materials. And then now these are my favorite Nikes right now. And these are super fun because it's like there's a cow print and crazy colors and all that kind of stuff. And then there are obviously designers. There are shoe designers at Nike that are focused on the future of shoes. So this is them kind of, you know, experimenting with different materials and like how that works. And within design.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah.
Do you mind putting your screen in presentation so we can see it a little bit larger?
Oh yeah, go ahead in presentation mode. Yes, sorry, I thought I did that. That is my fault. There we go. Here we go. Much better. So just like you can choose lots of careers, right? In design, there's lots of different things you can design. And so, like I just kind of showed you some shoe designs, but another one's automotive design. So if you're a car person, you can design cars. And the thing is about a car is, and you know, we talk about horsepower in cars, right? Well, that all came from the very beginning because people had horses, right? They went from shoes to horses, and then they realized, well, I actually need to carry some stuff. Okay, well, I'm going to create a carriage and a horse. And then we figured out, all right, what's that next version of a car? And that's where horsepower came from, right? Is they tried to figure out, okay, how many horses could this vehicle replace? And then nowadays, you know, people are designing these crazy Lamborghinis and stuff made out of carbon fiber and all kinds of cool materials. So you can be a shoe designer, a car designer. And this is what I do. I'm a user experience designer. So some of you might recognize this game. Like every screen you see in Fortnite, someone spent probably 10 to 100 hours designing, trying to figure out where should your information go? Like, how do you navigate your player? Like, how do you shoot stuff? How do you switch guns? Like all that kind of stuff. And so that's one type of design. And another type of UX design is actually just designing apps. That's just basically what I focus on, is basically phone, desktop applications. Another type is basically software and hardware. So when you look at these three pictures here on the space shuttles, basically in the beginning they had all these manual switches, but when they just launched their the space mission just recently in May here, they actually redesigned all those switches that you see on the very top to be just 3 digital screens. So it actually looked like a video game, only they're flying that thing into space, which is pretty amazing. And then another one is hardware. So like Ricky's going to talk about this a bit. Someone designed every inch of that piece of hardware and the controller. And so you can go into game hardware design. Another fun one, of course, is fashion. I mean, this is kind of my favorite jersey. That they designed for Miami just because it has an old kind of Miami Vice kind of look to it. But back in the day, I mean, look at this outfit. Somebody designed this one too. Now that doesn't really look so comfortable, right, for hoops and everything, but or a hot day in Dallas either. But as you can see, like all these are different types of design careers you can have, and you can do hats. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like Cam Newton loves, I don't know if you all are NFL fans at all, but like Cam Newton's always wearing, you know, some creative outfit just for fun. And then like the kind of last type of design I'll talk about real quick is architecture. And so again, it's a different type of design, but it's one where you get to think about, all right, how would I like a building to actually truly look and operate? And then how can I make that a reality? And so like, I'll just thought I'd show you some fun buildings that are out there in the world today. So like, this is one that's built like a complete circle. Someone's built a bubble around some things. This is a company that just basically wanted it to look like a fish. Like, it's crazy stuff. This is a company that makes baskets. They decided to make their corporate office look like a basket. And, you know, in the end, it's like you can choose lots of different types of careers and you can choose lots of different types of design. But the good part is you can start now. When you're young, you can start to experiment with different types of design just by learning about it, watching YouTube videos, maybe even like drawing up your own apps, you know, that you think of that you and your friends might use. And that's really kind of how you can kind of begin to experiment a bit with design. And then do you want to do some questions now, or how do you want to do that part?
Well, a question I have is, what is the coolest project you've been a part of? After looking at all these, what's the coolest you've been a part of?
Yeah, so I think the coolest one is pretty much gaming. You know, designing games was really fun. But you know, whether you're designing games or you're designing cars or you're designing buildings, the fun part is seeing how something you had in your head becomes real and other people get to use that thing. And like Ricky will talk about, I mean, designing the PlayStation, whether it's the hardware or the games on it, in the beginning, it's just a bunch of ideas. You're just drawing stuff on paper like you would for school. And then in the end, it's actually built and sold and people use it. In the case of PlayStation, it's millions of people, right? And so that's kind of cool to be able to see someone use the stuff that you built.
A question is, what is your favorite part of your job?
I mean, for me, I think the most favorite part is the very beginning of the process, where you get to think of basically any idea, and you get to explore those ideas, and you get to say, well, how would Instagram, how could I make that app better, right? And so I start to kind of concept what types of features and how they might look in the app, and how you might communicate with your friends, like how do you share pictures, how do you share funny stuff. And so that's my favorite part, is kind of the beginning of the process.
That's cool. Really, really cool. See if any more questions are coming in. All right. Another question I have, if kids want to learn how to be a UX designer now, then what do they need to do?
Yeah, I think so that's the cool part about any type of design and really any career. I think like when Ricky and I were kids, I don't think people really thought this way, but like people always thought, well, you know, when you get to college, you can start to think about your career. Or after college, you can think about your career. But the cool thing is now, all of you have access to so much more information than we ever had. And so if you want to learn about UX design, I mean, one, you can find a lot of YouTube videos on it, but two, you can just even sit down and just start drawing up an app that you might use with your friends, or drawing a video game that you think would be a fun game. And just know that in the beginning, it's hard because there are lots of ways you can go, lots of ideas you have, but that's okay, because when you're younger, you can explore and just kind of experiment and just learning how to take lots of crazy ideas and turn them into something that's actually producible is part of the process. And so any kid can do that. And the cool thing is you can start doing that now, right away. It's pretty cool.
Okay. For the kids that are just now tuning in, if you comment down below or have any questions, you can get 125 participation points by commenting down below. London Lewis said, can you give an example of something that you designed?
Yeah. So let's see, what's like a recent thing that we've been working on. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something a product that all of you would know. So years ago, I used to work for Microsoft, and we actually designed something called the Store for Business, which is actually the same store you use when you buy games and stuff for the Xbox. So if any of you out there have Xbox games and you go, whether you're on the box or off, if you go and navigate to buy a game, basically that workflow, that process that you go through is something we designed, and basically just allows you to kind of learn about the game itself, decide whether you want to see it. And the same thing with PlayStation, you get to see kind of a demo video, you get to see what it's like, and you get to decide, okay, do I want to try that, buy that, etc. So that's probably the most fun one.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh, okay. Since we just wrapped that up, I want to see if Ricky McCoy want to go on your presentation. Want to present right quick?
Sure. All right. Well, first off, thank you all for having me. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor to get a chance to speak to students you guys' age. So Eric, Erica, the whole organization Beyond the Ball, thank y'all so much. So I'm Ricky McCoy, born and raised in Dallas, Texas, more specifically Oak Cliff. Yes, that is my hood. That's where I grew up. I graduated from Cedar Hill, so I know some of you all are from Cedar Hill, the DeSoto area. The Battle of Beltline, I'm there. So currently, I'm actually in San Francisco. That's where PlayStation's headquarters is located. So moved out here with my family, and I'm at PlayStation now. But I'm a product owner, so we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So just in general, I'm going to get into more detail about what a product owner is, but I wanted to kind of give you guys just a high level on the gaming industry holistically. So obviously, the gaming industry it's a little different for everybody, right? Some people look at games as an escape element to kind of, being at school all day. You just want to kind of say, okay, let me take a break and escape from thinking so hard. Or you have some people that just want to go to a whole new world. Everyone has their own reasons for enjoying gaming. But the one thing I will say is that the people that work in gaming are people of all types, right? I mean, but the thing that's consistent is that they're all creative, they're passionate, and they love entertainment, right? If you have any of those three elements, then welcome to the gaming industry. A lot of people may say, hey, I never really considered gaming, or how do I get in it? That's some of the stuff that I'm going to definitely go into during this presentation. So next slide. All right, so gaming and sports are great friends, right? So I know a lot of you all are athletes, so I know you're very familiar with Madden, 2K, things like that. So all of these games that you see, even if it's not just sports, it has something to do with one of those three: creativity, passion, entertainment. Now, the type of jobs that are available, and this isn't even a smidget of the jobs that are available, right, in the gaming industry. We're talking about game developers, designers, product owners. I get into that a little bit. You have environment designers, people that only focus on making trees, right? Like you go to Fortnite, it's somebody or maybe two people that all they do is make sure that the environment, the trees, the dirt, the mountains, all of that looks the way it should look in the game. Then you have character designers, right? Character designers can range from people like Nathan Drake in Uncharted to Ratchet and Clank, all the way to like actual athletes in Madden, right? So all of that stuff is really more on the character design side. Then you have UX interface designers. So you all just heard from Jess on the UX side, the user experience. So a lot of our UX designers, the way that we utilize them heavily is especially when we're talking about accessibility. So accessibility is basically giving options for players that may have, disability or whatever the case might be, or hard of hearing. It's a disability, right? So we have to design things in such a way that it can be playable for all different type of players, right? But then also usability, meaning, how when you start a game and it has the menus where it says, okay, new game, load game, options, story, all that campaign stuff. That's UX, right? And then also when you're playing the game on your controller, where it may say, hey, your directional buttons will do this, where you might be able to pull, pick a weapon or pick a play. Those are UX elements, right? And it takes genius people like Jess to come in, do a lot of research, and say, hey, based on our research, these buttons should be operable like this, right? If you love music, oh man, if you love music, you like producing, singing, all of that, tons of jobs in gaming. You may not really notice that when you're playing a game, but now that I'm telling you, when you go home and you play on your Xbox or your PlayStation, start to listen to the soundtrack behind the scenes, right? I think Madden and 2K, they do a really good job of that. So when you first start a Madden game, one of the things that stands out is the soundtrack of the artist, right? Literally, these artists are getting paid to make music specifically for the game. But even if you're not a singer, but you're a musician where you like to play an instrument, tons of money. Because literally what they want you to do is come to the studio. Like PlayStation, we have a studio inside the actual headquarters, right? We got people that come in here, play the music, mix it, master it, and then layer it for the game. And we just keep reusing these people. Yeah, but that's something you may not think when you think about gaming, right? Storytellers. Man, if you have a passion for telling stories, that's really what the gaming industry is all about. It's basically you have a story that you would like to tell, but you want people to interact in a gaming method. That's what games are all about. So if you love to tell stories or you love talking a lot, that might be something that may be a good fit for you, right? And then the list goes on and on. So next slide.
A question to follow up on the headquarters. Yeah. What does the PlayStation headquarters look like?
Man, it's dope. The PlayStation headquarters is really fun, creative. Like in our lobby, we have, if you're familiar with the God of War franchise with Kratos, we have like, I don't know how tall this thing is. It's probably, I think it may be like 20 feet tall. There's a huge statue of Kratos and his son in the lobby. Tons of gaming systems everywhere, of course, right? Usually, a lot of people, you would just be like, hey, man, I'm finna go on break. I got to free my mind, and we just go play games. So I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's just kind of how it is. We have to like take a pause from what we're doing, kind of reset and go battle somebody on, Madden or whatever your game of choice may be. But tons of games everywhere. We have those like virtual racing car, seat kind of, tools. It's really one thing I would say. I can't really explain what the headquarters will be because, in my opinion, it was much more than I thought it was going to be. So it was like, oh, this is what you would think the headquarters would be, and then they take it to a whole nother level, right? It's imagine being in like a playground of games, right? Now, granted, we still have like the business, desk and things like that. But even they try to take that to the next level. They try to make it really like cool and eclectic, urban. And it's very diverse, man. Meaning a lot of people from multiple races, thinking mindsets, talents. That's what you have to have that in gaming, because when you're dealing with games, you're dealing with different people in different parts of their life, different neighborhoods, different parts of the world, and you have to have like a collective of people to help make that game come to life, right? But what does a product owner do? So what do I do? In a nutshell, really what I do is I actually take an idea and basically make it come to life. So product owners are in every major organization today: Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Pizza Hut. I used to work there as a loyalty product owner. It doesn't matter. Product owners, you have an idea, and what you do is you work with pretty much everybody in like different departments. So marketing, sales, operations. You basically are like the middleman that has an idea, and you work with everybody else to make that idea come to life. So if I'm working on a game or if I'm working on an interface, I'm definitely working with people like Jess, because I have to say, okay, Jess, this is what the vision I have. How can you help me as a product owner from a design standpoint, right? Then Jess will take that, do a few mock-ups or like designs, like sketches or whatever, bring it back to me and say, yes, this is something that will work. Then I'll work with marketing to say, okay, how are we going to get this out to the public, right? So I'm always like the one guy in the middle that's bringing the team together. And the reason why I like that is because if you're someone who loves to collaborate, then you probably could be a product owner, right? Now, there's a few more things that I do, obviously, besides bringing everybody together. I also have to do what Jess brought up earlier. He talked about features. So features is basically you have an idea, you have to start breaking that idea into different concepts. So say, for instance, I can't really talk about the gaming stuff right now because obviously all the PS5 stuff, and I'm working on that, so I can't really get into details. But to make it a lot more clear, imagine if I worked at Facebook or something, and everybody knows at Facebook, when you want to leave a comment, there's a comment section, like the little where you type the information.
With the bar.
Yeah, there's a product owner at Facebook that manages that part of the actual Facebook interface, because Facebook has photos, marketplace, comments, all of that. All those different sections have product owners. So what I would do is say, okay, this is how I want to make the product better. And that's what Jess spoke about with being iterative. And iterative basically means start small and keep growing, right? So you have an idea, start small with something that can get the product going or get that feature going. And you just keep building on top of it over and over and over. And that's how you always, when we see, you guys have ever seen those app updates? So when you're on your phone and hey, there's an app update, that's kind of what's happening. There's a product owner who was like, okay, hey, I got a new cool idea. Let me work with all these people, marketing, design, UX developers, and we're gonna put that new feature in the product. And then when they put it in a product, they release it to the public, and that's when you have to do the update, right? But the person who's kind of like on the hook, and also the person whose responsibility to make sure everything goes out successfully is a product owner.
Oh.
Yep. And now there is this thing that's called Agile Framework. In a nutshell, what it means is that we have an idea, and then you just start small and then grow. And if you look up Agile Framework on Google or YouTube or whatever, you'll see tons of information around that. All right, next slide. Cool. So if you go back one. Okay, so how do I become a product owner, right? A product owner literally just be yourself, right? But product owners have tons of different backgrounds. Me personally, I'm actually a developer, so I write software. I write software. I make computer programming type scenarios. So I can code websites, I can code apps, things like that. But when someone saw, I had a guy that I used to work at KFC and Pizza Hut headquarters in Plano. Someone saw a skill set that I had that was like, hey, Ricky, I know you're a developer, but you're also a collaborator, which means you can bring people together. You may want to evaluate looking at product ownership. At the time, I was like, okay, I don't know if I know that route. But as I began to start learning about the role, speaking to people in that position, that was something that I really like to do. So you don't have to have a specific background when you go into product ownership. You just have to know that, hey, when I do this, I have to be pretty solid in what I do, like, what I enjoy doing. So marketing, communications, finance, developers, I've seen all of these people become product owners, right? You just got to have a vision. You got to be able to bring people together. Those are two of the key component elements that I've seen with product owners. And that's a question that you're going to get asked on an interview, right? What makes a product owner, or what makes a good product owner? And what I've seen that works all the time is, hey, I love to bring people together, collaborate, and see an idea from an idea concept to execution, right? But that's pretty much it. I want to give you guys plenty of time to ask plenty of questions so that we can, so you can have a chance to ask.
Yep, that answered one of my questions I was going to say earlier.
Awesome.
Any questions from the chat?
Yeah, so I do see Dimitri. Okay, I'm definitely going to take Jalen's right here in a second, but I think I see
He
Dimitri.
says, how long would it take to develop a game? Oh, that's a good question.
Oh man, so Jalen, that's a good question. Some of the games you're playing right now were started 5-6 years ago, literally. Some of the the games like the Madden series, the 2K21s, those were started years ago. But what they're doing is they're iterating, right? So they already have a baseline of what the games will be like, but now they're adding more features, making the characters more clear, more realistic. But some new games, and we call those IPs. And every year in the game, we'll say, okay, we're going to do a new IP. What that basically means, this has never been created before. We're making a whole new game franchise. Those take 5 to 6 years. So from the time you hear it, it's been people working on that game 5 years, until you see it.
Yeah, and the same thing for apps, apps like Instagram and Facebook, etc., TikTok. Sometimes the features you see coming out today, somebody was working on that like a year ago. So it takes planning, right? Because there's lots of moving pieces and parts, both the designers, product owners like Ricky, and then you got the developers who actually write the code to enable the ideas, right? And then you got to release it, and then you want to test it to make sure it kind of works well before everybody uses it on their phones or their Xbox or their PlayStation, etc.
One of the questions I caught, I think he said, did you help make the PS5? Yeah.
So Dimitri, I did not help on the hardware side of the PS5, but my job right now is making sure, I can't go into details, but one of my jobs is the PS5, making sure that this thing is released in a excellent fashion, and so that it's ready for you guys when we put it out there. But that's a good question, because those are what we call, I guess it's hardware engineers. So they do, they actually make the hardware. Like a console is hardware, and then you have software. Software is what you see on the screens, like when you hook up on your you turn the console on, and you see all those interfaces. That's software. But the hardware is what you see, like the new white design. Those guys worked on that. But now it's my job to make sure that the PS5 goes out successfully. I can't give you the details on that, but that is one of my primary. Like before this call, I was working on that.
Kyle said, can the Beyond the Ball kids visit one day?
Yeah, look, if you ever in San Francisco, let us know, because we do have tours and everything of the headquarters. All you gotta do is let us know that you're coming, and just say, hey, Ricky McCoy invited me, put you on the list, and boom, let's go.
Yeah, you can find a time to do that. Most definitely.
Any other questions, guys or ladies? I think there was a question in the email that was asking about. It was kind of like Jess's question. It was like, what's the best thing you like about your job or about what you do? And really, I think Jess took my answer, honestly. It's really being able to have an idea and see it happen, right? Like when the PS5 is released this year, I'll know when I see it that this part I had a hand on that, right? And it's a blessing, to be quite frank, because everyone doesn't get a chance to have something, to see their work in action like that, right? Like part of my job is making sure that not just the U.S. but the globe. We're talking about Japan, Asia, Brazil, U.S., Mexico, Canada, right? Europe. All these people have a seamless experience, but knowing that an ideal that I had, I can see it in action whenever millions of people can actually play that, and I can see the work. It's a blessing to do that.
Yeah, I think that's another good thing you touched on too, is designers and product owners, because all of us live in the States, right? We think about, English and things like that. But, these products like PlayStation are going all over the world. And these apps that I designed, they're going all over the world. And so they have to be translated, right? And, like our slang words don't always really translate well. So someone from that culture, that region of the world kind of has to analyze what we have for content, like what the designs look like, and make sure that, you know, it communicates the right kinds of stuff too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Like,
I did, or go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, like one of the things that's cool when I started working at PlayStation was jumping on a call like this, you know, a Zoom call, or, you know, like the technology we're using, and then speaking, and then having people translate for you. First, that kind of threw me off a little bit, because normally, I mean, of course, English is an international language, but you will speak, and you have to really, you know, catch yourself to make sure when you ask a question or make a statement that it is as baseline to everybody across multi-cultures, regions, because like what Jess said, they wouldn't understand the context if you say it the way it's stated in America, right? So you have to watch everything you say, and it's the same with them. They would have to like make a statement, make a comment, and then a translator would translate what they stated to me, right? So even translators is a big thing in the game, because you have to be an awesome listener to be able to do that. I think that's very difficult as a translator, because not only do you have to be able to hear the intent of what someone's asking, but my job is very technical. So then you have to kind of know from a technical perspective what someone's asking you, and then translate it to the other people listening. That's another job people don't think about, but hey, it pays amazing.
Yeah. Miss Millette says, what advice would you give girls trying to break into tech and gaming?
It's wide open. Like, esports is a huge thing. So if you're a young lady and you play sports right now, esports is opening up to tons of young ladies, right? This is on the esports side, but there's so many different opportunities for young ladies, because gaming is one of the industries that really cherishes the viewpoint of a woman. Because take like the new game that just came out, The Last of Us Part 2, right? So we have the Ellie, the young girl. We need like a guy can't really, like, granted the director is a guy, but we have tons of women giving viewpoints on how this young lady should respond, how her mannerisms should be, right? Storytellers. We have to have, if you're a young lady, you like storytelling, it's a wide open industry. If you like coding, wide open industry. So gaming and tech has been, to be quite frank, has been one of the industries where we've had to make improvements on giving women an opportunity to enter. But now in this YouTube age, I see a lot more women get into coding. And just to be quite frank, when you get into coding, as long as you can understand basic algebra, this is one thing I wish I had the chance, or I wish I heard someone tell me. If you can understand that x equals 1 plus 2, x is obviously the value is 3. If you can understand the basics of algebra, you understand the basics of coding. I want everybody on this Zoom, or whatever you want to call it, to know that. Everybody on here can be a programmer if that's something you want to do. It's not difficult. It's just consistent practice, right? So I started coding when I was in the 11th grade. So I was at Cedar Hill when I started coding. I just picked up a book, learned the basic HTML, CSS, and I just kept trying, and boom, there you go. So women are definitely welcome in tech and gaming.
Yeah, and that, I think, a couple of things there. One, I would say more than half of the designers I work with that are on my teams are women. There are lots of really cool women in tech organizations, and Girls Who Code is another company that does lots of training if you want to get into coding. And I think regardless of like which kind of area you want to get into, whether it's coding or design or etc., the cool thing is you can download the apps and you can start to work on it now. So if you want to start writing code, you literally just can watch a couple of YouTube videos, you can download a couple apps, and then you can just start practicing. And you can do that. And I think when you're young is actually a really cool time to be able to do that, because when you're older, sometimes you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I pay my bills and stuff like that. But between your age now, when you go to college or whatever your plan is, you can use some of your free time to do that, and there's no pressure. You get to just do it for fun and explore it and try it out. And there's lots of design apps. Like a really good one's called Figma, and that's Figma, and that's a great app. So you can just download it, and it's very inexpensive. It's only a few dollars a month, and you can design anything you want in it almost. So.
Really good response. What school did you go to? I guess college.
So Anaya, high school, of course, Cedar Hill. I went to Cedar Hill, but college, I went to DeVry in Irving. But the one thing I will say as a developer, I was what you call really more so self-taught. So I just started coding on my own, and you'll see a lot of developers like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. A lot of us are self-taught, but we go to school to kind of like clean up the rough edges, right? Like this is really like how it should be when you go into corporate America. But like the one thing about coding is one of those industries where when you get on the interview, no matter what school you went to, either you know it or you don't. And I'm sure it's the same with UX as well, Jess, where you can, if someone asks you what an array or a variable or string, something like that, yeah, you can go to school, but you would know that just by training yourself, right? So when you get on it, so you one thing about gaming, I want to share this with a lot of people. There's a lot of developers who may have went there for maybe, went to school for a year or so, and are some of the best coders, right? But the thing about it is, it's when the degree comes in, when you want to say, take that up to management level, then HR is going to start evaluating that. Like, okay, we have two candidates, they're both very skilled, but then who do we want to make a director or a VP, vice president of that function? Then that's when they start looking at the degrees and everything.
Yeah, I went to University of Washington. I forgot to say that in the beginning. I'm from Seattle, so I went to University of Washington, which is up here. And my major was in psychology, which is kind of basically the study of how people think about things, which really works well for when you're designing games, cars, anything, right? It's like, how do you as a person kind of want to use this thing, right? How does your brain kind of analyze it? Yeah, I think, in terms of apps and things as well, I mean, I just think the cool thing is that whether you go to college or you go to a specialized school that focuses on engineering or design, that's a cool thing. Nowadays, you can choose that kind of thing. Like when I went to college, they didn't even have user experience designs classes or school training. So now if you want, that's another thing too, back to that question someone had asked about how you could learn about it. You could start to do some of those classes now, even as a kid, and you can do it online too. If like, I know as a kid, you can't like drive yourself around, that kind of stuff, but you can do the class online and you can start to really kind of hone your skills now, even before you graduate, even high school. So.
Yeah. And there was I think Anaya was asking about my major. So I majored in computer science, but,
Will you both be working with us after this if we want to learn more about your careers?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm working on with another organization and Beyond the Ball, we'll talk about this as well, is I'm going to start creating product owner videos like this so I can share it online, and then that way you all can basically just, kind of keep up with me, and I can keep up with you guys, so I can literally tell you, this is what a user story, this is what a feature, this is what the day-to-day looks like. So the goal is that when you finish the course, you can literally say, hey, I think I know what it takes to be a product owner. And you go to school, you get out, or do whatever, or even if you want to just go, straight to the workforce. Whatever you want to do, you have that know-how, right? To say, I know what it takes to become a product owner. And if you apply for those positions, you should be qualified for it. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, and I was going to say, if any of you have questions, you can probably get our, emails from Caleb, and you guys can obviously feel free to email us and ask us questions too. We're happy to, or at least I'm happy to answer anything you want to know.
Yep. We're not leaving. That's why we're Beyond the Ball. it's more beneficial for us to have a chance to speak to students, right? Because we always looking for the opportunity to basically pour into the next generation.
And I did see another question where someone had asked how long we've been doing kind of what we've been doing. And so I'll let Ricky obviously answer this after me, but I've been a designer for 18 years. And so, and then I've been actually managing design teams for the last year and a half or so. And so, you know, when you start out, you don't know a ton about product or design, but you just learn it as you go. And then you improve as much as you're willing to put time into it. It's just like basketball, right? If you want to improve your shot from certain areas, you just keep taking that shot over and over again until it gets better. And that's the same thing with your careers. That's why it's cool. You get to start learning about design and product and coding now. And you just, in the beginning, you might be frustrated, but just know that you do it.
And then for me, I coded for about 13 years, and then I transitioned into product management, product ownership for 7 years. So I coded from 1999 to about 2013, and then I transitioned to product owners in end of 2013. So even then, right, you gotta put the work in, right? Like Jess just said, it's not an overnight thing, you know. And that's the big gig. Like, yo, it's a blessing to work at PlayStation, but yo, it took 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
So now the one thing about it, start somewhere, because that adds up over time. And the one thing I'm sure Jess would agree, you'll be like, man, 20 years flew by and you didn't realize it, right? So and then you get to the point where you'll be like, oh wow, now I'm at a job that's like a dream job or whatever the case. But yeah, you have to put the work in, just like in basketball, football. You got to put it in.
And a good example too, like, you know, I don't know how many people like different YouTube stars and things like that, but I think a lot of times people think that those people were kind of created overnight, but a lot of them spent a lot of time doing other things before they learned how to produce a really nice video and have it be funny or have it be entertaining or educational, and all that stuff takes practice, right? And so in the beginning, like if you wanted to make a video tomorrow, it's probably going to not be that great. But then over time, 3 years from now, that'll be better. 3 more years, it gets better. So and the same good thing goes for a friend of mine. He actually makes movies, and his first movie was not good. And now he makes great movies, but took a lot of time, a lot of practice. So,
yeah.
Any questions? All right, I have a question myself. So, to all the Xbox fans, this is my opinion, but I think PlayStation is better than Xbox. So, I know why, but Mr. McCoy, can you tell them why is PlayStation better than Xbox?
So, I need you to ask that question, Caleb. In my opinion, it's really preference. See, I actually been playing PlayStation since 95, when like PlayStation 1 came out. The one thing that I liked about the PlayStation was the joystick, the controller. See, that's how, hey, Jess, that shows you how old I am with that joystick. The controller just felt better in my hands. And then when the Xbox came out, you know, years later, it was so huge. And it's still that way.
Yeah.
So a lot of times Xbox had came out, I was already used to like the slimline design of the PlayStation. But now the one thing I will say is most people in the industry will tell you, whether you're a PC gamer, Xbox, or PlayStation, we're like one big family because we just have a love for the industry, gaming. But everybody have their viewpoints on why they like the PlayStation. The one thing I'll say why PlayStation stands out to me is because our exclusive games, in my opinion, are like to die for, right? Meaning, when I say exclusives, I'm saying games you only can play on PlayStation, like Uncharted, The Last of Us, the new Ghost of Tsushima, Gran Turismo. Those games, like PlayStation is known for putting out first-party excellent games, right? Now, Xbox has like Halo, things like that. but you really can't compete with us on those PlayStation exclusives. So
Yeah. Oh, to follow up on that question, how is the PS5 different from the PS4?
oh man, so all I can say on that is yeah, this is public information. So today when you're playing the PS4, you know how you have the loading times. Well, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to drastically see a difference in that, and that's because what we call the hard drive, the HDDs, what they call today, when we go into a solid state drive, which means that you'll be able to process that information in like milliseconds, right? And from a developer perspective, we're actually going to be able to allow the developers, so like EA Sports, like the EA, the people who make the games, those developers will take anything in their mind and not really be consolidated by what they can do. So like you all may not notice this now, but when you're playing a video game, we don't load the entire environment or the entire scene. It's loading certain parts of it in chunks. So say you're playing this part of the game and then you continue on the mission. It's not loading the whole game. It's only loading the parts that you need to see for the screen, right? PS5, that's not really an issue anymore, right? And you all will see it. It's gonna be live. That's all I can say, man. Like you'll love it. I did see too much.
I really want to get that answer.
PS4, but it's all good.
Is there any more questions from the chat? Did you play sports in high school?
Man, I actually didn't. I stopped when I was in junior high, and I just did the whole, try to be cool, do the whole. My whole thing was more so. I think it was BPA. I was in a lot of organizations in high school. That's actually how I got started coding, because I did a contest like at Cedar Hill, and it was like, can you make a website? That's actually how I got started. And at this time, this was like drag and drop, and I liked it. And I was like, I think I can do this. I want to know how to code it. And boom, that's how it happened.
Yeah, well, growing up here in the Northwest, we have a lot of mountains. So, I grew up skiing and snowboarding, and I also played soccer pretty much all the way until I tried out for college. And then just, other fun sports like mountain biking, because we got a lot of trails up here in the Northwest. And then, as I've gotten older now, I ride motorcycles on the street and have some dirt biking too. So
I would love to try skiing.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's really
fun.
fun.
Any more questions?
And hey guys, you're always welcome to come out to the West Coast, man. Like literally, that's one benefit, Jess. I mean, Jess is just north of me. But right here in San Francisco, this is where Google's at, Facebook, PlayStation, Salesforce, Twitch, you name it. All of these companies are right here. So you always have opportunity out here as well. Don't be afraid to step out.
Well, if there's not any more questions, we can begin to close out. So thank you, Mr. McCoy, Mr. Bambachi, for taking time out of your day to speak with us and get to know about the PlayStation and PitchBook, and really cool. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Oh, we'll see you guys later.
it. You too.
Have a good one, everybody.